The war room smelled of pine smoke and gun oil. Jack Sterling stood between two men who could have been carved. From the mountain itself, his hands flat against the tactical map spread across the oak table. 5 months of fighting had left its mark on all of them, scars visible and otherwise, but the weight pressing down on his shoulders had nothing to do with the past weeks of skirmishes along the border. The door opened without a knock. Sarah Mitchell, intelligence officer and former CIA analyst, entered with the kind of controlled urgency that made Jack's combat instincts flare. She carried a manila folder stamped with red classifications that shouldn't exist this far from Langley. Marcus Thornfield's convoy just crossed the state line. 50 fighters, maybe more. Heavy weapons. He's demanding you return to Redwood Pack jurisdiction. The words hung in the air like smoke. Jack felt his jaw tighten, the old wound on his chest where his pack tattoo had burned away 5 months ago, pulsing with phantom pain. To his left, Kane Silvercrest, 68 years old and harder than coffin nails, didn't move except for the slight shift of his eyes toward Jack. To his right, Rowan Silvercrest, Kane's twin, and the warmer half of their legendary partnership leaned back in his chair with the patience of a man who'd seen this kind of moment too many times to count. "Your call, Lieutenant," Kane's voice carried the gravel of 1,000 battlefields. "How do we handle this?" Rowan's fingers drummed once against the armrest. "We've got your back, whatever you decide." Jack looked at the map. Red pins marked Marcus's approach through the mountain passes. Blue pins showed Silver Peak's defensive positions. Between them, miles of wilderness that had nearly killed him once and had instead become his salvation. He thought about honor, about justice, about the difference between revenge and reckoning. "We handle it the old way." His voice came out cold, each word measured. "With honor and with blood." Kane nodded once, a sharp movement that conveyed approval and readiness in equal measure. Rowan stood reaching for the radio handset, but Jack was already seeing past this moment, his mind racing through tactical options, defensive positions, the mathematics of violence that had kept him alive through 2 tours in Afghanistan and a betrayal that should have killed him. 5 months earlier, Jack Sterling had driven his Ford F-150 down Highway 101 through the redwood country of Northern California, not knowing it would be the last time he'd see the Pacific Ocean for a long while. The truck's odometer read 187,000 miles, most of them honest. The rifle behind the seat was a Marine Corps issue M4 he'd bought at auction after his discharge, maintained with the kind of religious devotion that separated professionals from amateurs. Redwood Pack territory stretched across 3 counties, from the coast to the mountains, encompassing old-growth forests and newer developments, where wealthy wolves had built estates that wouldn't look out of place in Napa Valley. Jack had grown up in the eastern section in a modest ranch house his mother had kept immaculate until cancer took her when he was 17. His father, a decorated pack warrior, had raised him on stories of honor and duty, of what it meant to serve something larger than yourself. Coming home had been harder than combat. The transition from leading Marines under fire to managing pack security felt like trying to fit a round peg into a square hole. But Jack had done his duty, kept his head down, trained the younger wolves in tactical fundamentals they'd never need until suddenly they did. Marcus Thornfield, the pack's alpha, had welcomed him back with calculated warmth that Jack now recognized as the first warning sign he'd missed. The pack house sat on a hill overlooking the town, a sprawling compound that mixed old California mission architecture with modern security features. Jack parked in his assigned spot, noting the new cameras installed since yesterday, the additional patrol walking the perimeter. He'd been compiling evidence for 3 months, building a case with the methodical patience he'd learned in the Corps. Every transaction documented, every suspicious meeting noted, every piece carefully cross-referenced, until the picture became clear. Marcus Thornfield was running an empire built on gun trafficking, drug distribution, and alliances with criminal organizations. The council meeting was scheduled for 7. Jack carried his evidence folder up the steps past guards who nodded with respect, through hallways lined with photographs of pack history. His father was in some of those pictures, young and strong, before the war that took him. The council chamber was full when he arrived. 20 elders and pack leaders arranged in a semicircle facing a central podium. Marcus sat at the head table wearing a tailored suit that probably cost more than Jack's truck. Next to him, Victoria Ashcroft, his enforcer, and the coldest person Jack had ever met outside of combat zones, studied her manicured nails with predatory patience. Jack's combat instincts screamed a warning he should have heeded. The room felt wrong. Too many hostile eyes. Too much tension beneath the veneer of formal procedure. Lieutenant Sterling, Marcus's voice filled the chamber smooth as whiskey and twice as poisonous. Thank you for coming. Before you present your findings, I'm afraid the council needs to address some serious allegations that have come to our attention. Jack's hand tightened on the folder. Allegations concerning you. What followed was a masterclass in political betrayal. Marcus laid out a case built on fabricated evidence, doctored documents, and testimony from witnesses who've been brought to different threats. Money missing from PAC accounts. Money Jack supposedly stole. Intelligence leaked to rival PAC's intelligence Jack supposedly sold. Plans for a coup. Plans Jack supposedly orchestrated. Every accusation was a lie, but every lie was supported by evidence so carefully constructed that untangling the truth would take months Jack knew he wouldn't have. He tried to speak to present his own evidence to force the council to see the truth, but Marcus had orchestrated this perfectly. The votes had been decided before Jack walked through the door. Guilty on all charges. Sentence expulsion from Redwood PAC. PAC bond severance. All military honors stripped. All possessions confiscated. 24 hours to leave PAC territory or face execution. The ceremony was public because humiliation was part of the punishment. 300 PAC members gathered in the central square. They made him kneel in the dirt while Marcus performed the severance ritual. Ancient words that ripped the PAC bond out of his chest like tearing roots from soil. The physical pain was extraordinary. Bones felt like they were breaking fire racing through his veins, every nerve ending, screaming. But worse than the physical agony was the sound of his own PAC turning on him. Never trusted him anyway. Always knew he was too good to be true. Good riddance to bad blood. Jack didn't beg, didn't cry. When the ritual completed and the PAC tattoo on his chest burned away, leaving raw, scorched skin, he stood up on legs that shook but held. He looked Marcus Thornfield dead in the eye. You and I both know the truth. And one day that truth is going to come for you. Marcus's smile never wavered. Get out of my sight, traitor. Jack walked through the crowd with his head high. Victoria Ashcroft was waiting near the gates. As Jack passed, she stepped close enough for him to smell her perfume, something expensive. You should have kept your mouth shut, Boy Scout. Her voice was silk over razors. Now you're nothing. Enjoy dying alone in the wilderness. Jack didn't answer. He just kept walking through the gates and out of the only home he'd known since returning from the war. His truck was where he'd left it, but when he checked the bed, everything was gone. Confiscated. All that remained was the rifle behind the seat. He drove north through the failing light, leaving the coast behind, climbing into the mountains that marked the edge of PAC territory. At the border, he stopped and looked back at the land his father had died defending. Then he crossed into neutral territory, into the wilderness where rogues and outcasts went to disappear or die. The first night Jack made camp in a ravine 20 miles from the border. He built a fire from dry wood using techniques the Marine Corps had drilled into him. The severance wound on his chest throbbed with every heartbeat, weeping fluid that worried him. PAC bonds weren't just psychological, they provided healing factors, enhanced strength connection to something larger. Without that bond, wolves weakened. The second day brought rain, cold autumn rain, that turned the mountain trails to mud. Jack pushed north toward the higher elevations, where the maps showed nothing but wilderness for 100 miles. He hunted when he could, cooked over fires built in the shelter of rock overhangs. The severance wound wasn't healing. By the third day, fever had its claws in him. Jack knew the signs, had seen too many Marines go down to infection in the Afghan heat. He pushed on anyway, climbing higher because stopping meant dying, and dying meant Marcus won. On the fourth day, the infection spread into his bloodstream. Sepsis, blood poisoning. Jack had none of the medical care he needed. What he had was a fever that made the world swim, a body shutting down, system by system, and a stubbornness his drill instructors had cursed and his squad had relied on. He fell sometime after noon, tumbling down a rocky slope that would have killed him if a pine tree hadn't broken his fall. The impact shattered ribs, snapped his left leg, broke a knee. He dragged himself under a rock outcropping, vision tunneling, consciousness flickering. This is how it ends. Alone. Dishonored. In some nameless stretch of wilderness where nobody will ever find the body. Footsteps. Real or imagined, Jack couldn't tell. Multiple people moving with careful precision. voices cutting through the fever dream. He's here, still alive barely. The voice was deep, weathered, carrying authority like a combat commander. Severance wound, recently expelled. Another voice harder than the first. Could be trouble. Look at the scars. Combat veteran, military bearing, even unconscious. The first voice again. Bring him. Hands lifted Jack, strong and surprisingly gentle. Warmth surrounded him. His fevered mind tried to make sense of it. Marines don't leave anyone behind, but these weren't Marines. Still alive, boy. Hang on. The first voice. We've got you. Darkness pulled him under, but it felt different from the dying he'd been doing. This darkness felt like safety. Time became meaningless. Jack floated through fever dreams, consciousness surfacing occasionally before diving back under. Voices discussed him in clinical terms. Sepsis, compound fracture, severe dehydration, pack bond trauma. Somewhere in the depths of the fever, his body fought its war for survival. The fever broke on the third day. Jack woke to find himself in a large bedroom, log cabin construction with morning light streaming through windows that looked out on pine forest and distant mountains. Medical equipment surrounded the bed. His left leg was in a cast, elevated and immobilized. His chest was wrapped in clean bandages that smelled of antiseptic and healing herbs. He tried to sit up and pain shot through his ribs. The door opened. The woman who entered wore casual civilian clothes, but her bearing screamed military medical corps. Mid-40s Asian American with steady hands and eyes that had seen too much to be shocked by anything. Easy, soldier. You've been out 3 days. She moved to check his vitals. You had sepsis from that severance wound. Lucky we found you. Another day, maybe 2, you'd have been past help. Jack's voice came out as a croak. Where am I? Silver Peak territory, Montana-Wyoming border. She marked something on a chart. You're in the Silver Crest compound. I'm Lydia Chenpak, medic. Former Army nurse, 3 tours in Iraq, so don't try to tell me you're fine. Silver Crest, the name carried weight. Jack knew the stories, twin brothers, Vietnam War veterans, who'd taken over a failing pack 40 years ago and built it into something that had never been conquered. Legends in a world where most legends were bullshit. Why did they save me? Lydia adjusted his IV. You'll have to ask them that. But I can tell you what I saw when they brought you in. Your scars tell a story, Captain Sterling. Combat veteran, someone who earned his medals the hard way. And that severance wound, fresh, brutal, done with malice. The brothers recognized it for what it was. Before Jack could ask more, the door opened again. 2 men entered, and Jack's combat-trained instincts recognized them immediately as apex predators. Identical twins, 68 years old, but carrying their age like wolves half their years. Silver gray hair worn military short. Weathered faces that had seen violence and dispensed it with equal facility. The first one had warm eyes that somehow didn't diminish the steel underneath. He moved with a dancer's grace, every gesture economical and precise. The second was broader through the shoulders, harder in expression, with eyes that assessed Jack the way a general studies terrain. Name, rank, unit, the harder one spoke first. Sterling Jack, Captain USMC, 1st Battalion, 5th Marines. The warmer one smiled slightly. Good. Military bearing intact despite what you've been through. I'm Rowan Silvercrest. This is my brother Kane. Welcome to Silver Peak territory, Captain. Thank you for saving me. Jack forced the words out. But I should leave. I'm expelled, dishonored. Kane cut him off with a gesture. We know what happened. Marcus Thornfield framed you. You found evidence of his crimes, gun running, drug trafficking, alliance with cartels. You were building a case to present to the Pack Council. Jack stared, how Rowan settled into a chair beside the bed. We have intelligence networks that span the Western Territories. Been watching Redwood Pack for months. Thornfield's been making moves destabilizing the region, building an empire on criminal enterprises. We needed proof. Then you showed up half dead in our forest, carrying that proof in your head. Kane turned back to him. We're offering you a place here, not as a refugee, as a soldier, lieutenant in our security force. Jack's mind tried to process that. Why, you don't know me? I could be the traitor they said. Rowan leaned forward. We know men, Captain. Seen enough in our 68 years. Your scars tell one story, combat veteran who earned his medals in the field, not behind a desk. Your eyes tell another man who kept his honor when it would have been easier to lose it. Kane's voice carried command authority. And frankly, we need good officers. Territory's growing, threats increasing. Thornfield's just one problem among many. We could use someone with your tactical experience, your combat record, your integrity. What's the catch? Rowan's smile widened slightly. No catch. You work hard, follow orders, earn your keep. We pay well, treat our people fairly, and we never betray our own. Kane's expression didn't change. But understand this clearly. You wear our colors, you're ours. We protect you, you protect us. That's the deal. Break it and there's nowhere you can hide. Keep it and you'll never face betrayal from us. I need time to think. Rowan nodded. Take it. Heal up first. Decide when you're ready. Jack spent the next week healing and observing. Silver Peak compound sprawled across a mountain valley, a mix of old-growth forest and carefully constructed buildings that blended function with defense. 200 wolves called this place home, and from what Jack could see, they lived with military discipline and genuine community he'd never witnessed in Redwood Pack. Lydia visited twice daily, changing dressings and checking his progress. The severance wound was healing faster than it should without a pack bond. Jack mentioned it. Strong pack bonds here. Even visitors feel it. Lydia smiled. The Silvercrest brothers built something special, not based on politics or money or who your family was, based on merit, on loyalty, on actually giving a damn about your people. She brought him reports and files to occupy his mind, intelligence assessments of regional threats, tactical evaluations of defensive positions, training schedules for security personnel. Jack read them with the attention to detail that had kept his Marines alive, and he couldn't help making mental notes of improvements. On the 8th day, when Jack could finally hobble around on crutches, he got his first tour. His guide was Sergeant Marcus Stone, no relation to Thornfield, as the man was quick to clarify with dark humor. Head of security, former Delta Force 2 Silver Stars, in a scar that ran from his left eye to his jaw. Stone was 55, built like a fire hydrant, and had eyes that had seen too much violence to be impressed. Let's see what Marines taught you. Stone led Jack to a training mat. Nothing fancy. Just show me you remember how to fight. The sparring match was over in 30 seconds. Even with cracked ribs and a broken leg and a cast, Jack's muscle memory carried him through a sequence that put Stone on his back before the sergeant fully registered what happened. Stone took Jack's offered hand to help him up. You'll do. Brothers were right about you. That afternoon, Jack met Elder Iris, the pack's historian. 80 years old, but her eyes were sharp as she studied Jack over tea. You're here for a reason, young man. Her voice carried decades of weight. This territory has been waiting for someone like you. Over the following days, Jack found himself drawn into the compound's rhythm. He couldn't help analyzing their security protocols. When he spotted weaknesses in perimeter coverage, he mentioned them to Stone. When patrol routes seemed inefficient, he suggested improvements. When training exercises lacked tactical realism, he offered to redesign them. Kane noticed. One evening, he found Jack on the lodge's porch, studying maps by lamplight. You're still planning to leave? Jack looked up. Haven't decided. Your actions say otherwise. Kane settled into the opposite chair. Man who's leaving doesn't redesign another pack's security. You've already made your choice. You just haven't admitted it to yourself yet. Before Jack could respond, alarms split the night. Stone's voice crackled over the PA system, professional and urgent. Contact Eastern Perimeter. 12 hostiles heavily armed. All security personnel respond. Jack's combat instincts overrode everything else. He was moving before conscious thought, engaged, dropping the maps, grabbing the crutches. Kane was already heading for the armory, and Jack followed because that's what you did when alarm sounded. Stone met them at the armory, distributing weapons. He looked at Jack and tossed him a rifle without question. Body armor followed tactical vest ammunition. Jack stripped off his shirt, pulled on the gear with practiced efficiency, checked the rifle's action. Rowan appeared from another direction, also armed. He saw Jack gearing up and smiled grimly. Thought you were leaving. Jack chambered around. Thought I'd help first. The eastern perimeter was 300 yards from the main compound. 12 attackers had hit hard, using suppressing fire to pin down 3 Silver Peak guards. Jack assessed the situation in seconds, his Marine training overlaying tactical options. Stone was barking orders, positioning his people defensively. Good tactics, but reactive. Jack's mind was already 3 moves ahead. Suppressing fire left flank. Jack's command voice cut through the chaos. Stone, take 3 men, circle right through that ravine. I'll keep them focused center. Stone looked at Kane for confirmation. Kane nodded once. Do it. What followed was textbook ambush reversal. Jack led the suppressing element, putting rounds downrange with controlled bursts. Stone's element moved through darkness, using terrain to flank. When they emerged behind the attackers, the fight was essentially over. Caught between two elements, the attackers had two choices: surrender or die. 8 chose surrender. 4 chose wrong and paid for it. When the shooting stopped, Kane approached Jack. That was impressive, Captain. Just did what needed doing. Jack lowered his rifle, suddenly aware of the pain in his ribs. That's exactly why we want you. Rowan appeared from the darkness. Your instinct under fire. Your tactical acumen. The way our men responded to your orders without hesitation. The attackers, in brief interrogation, turned out to be mercenaries hired to probe Silver Peak's defenses. They knew nothing beyond their target and price. But Jack saw the bigger picture. Someone was testing the territory, preparing for something larger. Back at the compound, as medics treated wounded and Stone's people processed prisoners, Kane found Jack standing alone near the memorial wall. 45 names carved in stone, wolves who died defending this territory. You're already making command decisions. Kane's observation wasn't criticism. Already thinking 3 steps ahead. Already protecting people who aren't technically your responsibility yet. Jack was quiet, thinking about the weight of command and the cost of leadership. All right, the word came out quiet but firm. I'll stay, I'll earn my place, but I do it my way. No politics, no games, just the mission. Kane extended his hand. Welcome to Silver Peak, Lieutenant Sterling. Jack shook it, feeling the strength in the older man's grip, the weight of an oath being forged. This wasn't like Redwood Pack. This was something different, something worth fighting for. That night, Jack moved into quarters assigned to officers, a small cabin with a bed, a desk, and a window looking out over the mountains. On the desk, someone had left a lieutenant's insignia and a tactical vest with Sterling stenciled across the back. He stood at the window long after lights out, looking at the compound below, at the mountains beyond. Somewhere out there, Marcus Thornfield was building his empire, believing Jack Sterling was dead or broken or irrelevant. Marcus thought he destroyed me. The thought crystallized. He was wrong. I'm not the man who left Redwood. I'm something more dangerous now. A man with nothing left to lose and everything left to prove. The weeks settled into rhythm. Jack rose at 0500 for PT, with security personnel pushing his healing body through exercises that hurt, but built back strength. Lydia monitored his recovery with professional efficiency. The severance wound finally closed, the ribs started to knit. The broken leg would take longer, but he could function with a walking cast. Lieutenant Sterling took his role seriously from day one. Rowan and Kane had given him command of perimeter security, and Jack threw himself into the work with intensity he'd brought to leading Marines. The Silver Peak fighters responded with enthusiasm that surprised him. They were good, better than expected, but they'd been operating without recent combat experience. Jack brought lessons from Helmand Province in the Korengal Valley. Stone watched the transformation with grudging approval. You're turning my people into killers. Jack cleaned his rifle. I'm turning them into survivors. There's a difference. Killers kill because they want to. Survivors kill because they have to. I want everyone in this territory to go home at night. Evening strategy sessions with Rowan and Kane became the highlight of Jack's day. The 3 of them gathered in the main lodge after operations, ceased spreading maps and intelligence reports across the table, discussing threats with professional frankness us Jack had missed since leaving the service. The brothers were tacticians in their own right, veterans of Vietnam who'd learned their trade in the Central Highlands. You remind us of ourselves at your age, Rowan said at one night of whiskey. Before Vietnam, we thought we knew everything. Thought honor and bravery were enough. The war taught us different. Taught us that good men die for bad reasons, that the enemy respects violence, and nothing else, that the only way to protect what you love is to be more ruthless than those trying to destroy it. Kane poured another round. We learned those lessons the hard way. Lost half our unit in an ambush outside Hughes City. Should have seen it coming. Afterward, we swore we'd never be caught unprepared again. 40 years leading this pack, we've kept that promise. Jack understood what they were offering, not just a job, but membership in a brotherhood forged in combat and tempered by decades of shared survival. The first real mission came in Jack's third week. Cartel scouts had been spotted probing the southern border. Kane brought Jack the intelligence report with a question implicit in the gesture: how do we handle this? Jack studied the map, the scout locations, the terrain. In Afghanistan, they dealt with Taliban scouts the same way, aggressively, definitively sending a message. He outlined his plan: intercept a team moving fast and light hit the scouts before they could report back. Make it clear Silver Peak territory was off limits. Rowan approved. Kane added one modification: take Stone and his best people, make sure the message is unmistakable. Jack selected 6 fighters, all veterans. They moved out at dawn. The intercept happened at noon in a narrow valley. Jack's team moved through the approach with textbook precision, using terrain to mask their advance. The scouts never had a chance. 6 professionals executing tactical ambush against unprepared targets resulted in total surprise, immediate capitulation, 0 friendly casualties. The scouts confirmed what intelligence suggested: cartel operations expanding north, looking for corridors through packed territories. Jack made sure they understood circumstances clearly. Silver Peak wasn't negotiating, wasn't allowing passage. The scouts were released with hands tied and weapons confiscated, told to deliver a simple message: Silver Peak territory is closed. Test us again, and we won't be as generous. That evening, Kane met Jack's team, personally reviewed the operation, gave Jack a nod that conveyed volumes. First mission success, message sent, territory protected. Sarah Mitchell became Jack's primary intelligence contact, their relationship developing easy professional rapport. She'd spent 15 years at Langley analyzing threats. The transition to pack intelligence work had been seamless, different players, same games. She found Jack one evening on his cabin's porch cleaning his rifle. 2 beers accompanied her arrival, offered without ceremony. Heard about the cartel intercept, clean work. Kane doesn't impress easily, but your operation impressed him. Just eliminated a threat. Jack worked solvent through the barrel. Same thing I did every day in Afghanistan. Sarah studied him with analyst eyes. You're good for this place, Jack. The brothers needed someone who understands that honor and violence are not opposites. Sometimes they're identical. They sat in comfortable silence. Jack thought about Marcus Thornfield, wondered if his former Alpha ever considered the possibility that the man he'd betrayed might survive. Decided it didn't matter. Month 3 arrived with intelligence that made Jack's tactical instincts scream warnings. Sarah delivered it before dawn, her expression carrying controlled urgency. You need to see this. She handed Jack a classified document. There's another council, bigger than just Marcus, operating across the Western Territories. Jack read with analytical focus. Marcus Thornfield had been consolidating power in Northern California, eliminating opposition, expanding criminal operations. His fighter count had grown to over 400. Training facilities established. Weapons caches positioned. And he was looking. How long? Jack looked up. Sarah's expression was grim. Weeks, maybe. Marcus is still positioning assets, but he's coming and he'll bring everything he's got. Kane and Rowan received the news with calm that came from expecting it. They'd been watching Marcus for months, had known confrontation was inevitable. But preparation required intelligence, and intelligence required interpretation. This is your fight now, too. Kane's statement acknowledged reality. Marcus can't allow you to exist. You're evidence of his crimes walking around in enemy territory. Every day you're alive represents a threat to everything he's built. Then we prepare. Jack's voice carried the calm that came from accepting the inevitable. We fortify defenses, strengthen alliances, make him pay for every inch. He's got numbers, but we've got terrain and preparation. What do you need? Rowan leaned forward. Time, intelligence, training for every able body in this territory. Jack was already making lists. Marcus will come with overwhelming force. We can't meet him head on. We need to make this territory a meat grinder. Kane's smile was cold. Then let's get to work. The following weeks transformed Silver Peak into a fortress. Jack worked 18-hour days, driving himself and everyone else with intensity. Defensive positions were reinforced, expanded, layered with overlapping fields of fire. Fallback positions prepared. Patrol routes redesigned. Every fighter received advanced tactical training. The civilian population was briefed and evacuated to secure locations deeper in the territory. It was hard on families, but necessary. Jack established a war council. Kane, Rowan Stone, Sarah, and key personnel. They met daily reviewing intelligence updating plans, wargaming scenarios. The sessions were intense, professional, characterized by brutal honesty. Marcus sent his first official message in Jack's fourth week. An emissary under flag of truce carrying demands wrapped in diplomatic language. Return Lieutenant Sterling. Cease interference. Allow free passage for commercial operations. Comply or face consequences. Jack wrote the response himself. Lieutenant Sterling is under Silver Peak protection. His expelled status is recognized as unjust political persecution. We possess documented evidence of Alpha Thornfield's criminal activities. Any attempt to take Sterling by force constitutes an act of war. The emissary departed looking pale. Jack watched him go. You just declared war, Kane observed. He declared it when he framed me. Jack's voice was flat. I'm just answering. Alliance building accelerated. Rowan traveled to neighboring territories with evidence and warnings. 3 smaller packs agreed to mutual defense pacts, adding roughly 100 fighters. Still outnumbered, but less desperate. Jack personally integrated allied fighters into defensive plans. It was challenging different traditions, different command structures, but Jack had experience from Afghanistan integrating different units. The principles were universal: clear communication, shared objectives, trust through training. The first attack came on a Tuesday afternoon when Jack was leading a supply convoy 15 miles from compound. 15 fighters, 3 vehicles, standard security. The ambush hit 5 miles out, professional and coordinated 30 mercenaries with automatic weapons and explosives. Jack's training saved lives in the first 10 seconds. He recognized the pattern-shaped charges targeting lead and rear vehicles, machine gun fire from elevated positions. His response was immediate. Defensive circle, return fire, suppress those positions. Stone was in the rear vehicle coordinating response. The Silver Peak fighters had been drilled until procedures became automatic. Within 30 seconds, defensive positions were established, suppressing fire, engaging enemy positions. But 30 against 15 meant trouble. Jack assessed with cold calculation. Standard doctrine said call for reinforcement and hold. But this ambush was designed to kill everyone before help arrived. Jack made the decision that would define his reputation. Stone, take 8 fighters, hold this position. I'm flanking them. What are you doing? Stone demanded. Winning this fight, Jack grabbed 6 fighters. With me, move. What followed was textbook tactics. Jack led through the ravine under covering fire, moving fast but controlled. The ambushers were focused on the pinned convoy. They never saw Jack's element until too late. The assault was brutal and efficient. Jack's fighters emerged behind the ambush positions and rolled them up in 15 minutes of close-quarters violence. Attackers who surrendered were zip-tied. Those who fought died. Among the captured was a woman Jack recognized immediately. Victoria Ashcroft looked at him with cold calculation despite being on her knees in the dirt. Should have killed you in the wilderness. Her voice carried no emotion. Jack crouched to her level. He will try. Difference being that last time I was alone, fevered, and unarmed. Now I'm not. The interrogation of Victoria took hours. She sat calmly in the secure room calculating odds. Why did Marcus really frame me? Jack opened with the question that had haunted him. Victoria studied him, some internal calculations becoming out. Finally, she laughed harshly. You really don't know. You stumbled into something much bigger. Explain. Kane's command carried weight. Marcus isn't working alone. There's a coalition. The Council, 7 Alpha leaders across Western territories. Their goal is regional control through crime intimidation, systematic elimination of opposition. Marcus holds California. Others control Oregon, Nevada, Idaho, parts of Washington. Combined resources, 3,000 fighters, millions in illegal revenue, politicians, and law enforcement on payroll. Jack felt something cold settle in his stomach. And I threatened this, how your investigation didn't just expose Marcus. It would have revealed the entire network. Financial transactions, supply chains, coordination between supposedly independent pacts. The Council couldn't allow that exposure. You had to be eliminated. Sarah leaned forward. Who were the other Council members? Victoria provided 6 names. The scope was staggering, a criminal conspiracy spanning 5 states. And Silver Peak Rowan's question was quiet. You're the obstacle. Victoria's smile was cold. The Council offered the Silvercrest Brothers partnership. You refused. Your territory sits at strategic crossroads. Your reputation makes other packs think resistance is possible. You represent everything the Council wants to eliminate. When are they coming? Jack addressed her directly. Not just Marcus, all of them. Victoria's smile widened. Within weeks, Marcus is leading because you're here. But the other Council Alphas are sending reinforcements. Maybe 3,000 fighters total. You can't win this. Jack walked to the window. People going about evening routines. Normal life about to be shattered. Tell me everything. Every council member, every alliance, every resource they can bring. Full intelligence. And maybe we don't turn you over to Regional Pack Council as accomplice to conspiracy. Victoria considered, then started talking. The intelligence Victoria provided reshaped everything. The council wasn't just criminal enterprise. It was systematic attempt to replace pack governance with authoritarian control. The Regional Pack Council itself was compromised. Jack, Kane, Rowan, and Sarah worked through the night. Maps showed council territories. Financial records revealed money flows. The conspiracy was more extensive than anyone suspected. By dawn, one truth was undeniable. Silver Peak couldn't win this alone. 3,000 attackers against 300 defenders was mathematics that ended in massacre. They needed to change the equation. We can't win militarily, Jack voiced what everyone knew. Not against 3,000, but we can win politically. If we expose the council to Regional Pack Council, show the scope of conspiracy, we can turn their allies against them. Rowan nodded slowly. Political warfare combined with military defense. Kane added the tactical component. While we're exposing them politically, we make their military assault too costly. Bleed them defensively. Force them to commit resources while their political foundation crumbles. Sarah was making lists. We need to get this intelligence to Regional Pack Council. Contact packs under council control. Coordinate resistance simultaneously. The strategy crystallized. Silver Peak would fight, but not alone and not just militarily. They'd expose the conspiracy while defending against assault. It was risky, required precise timing, but it was the only option that didn't end in massacre. Jack spent following days preparing for war with intensity that had characterized his Marine service. Every defensive position inspected. Every fighter received final instructions. Every contingency planned and rehearsed. The compound transformed into a fortress. Allied packs received detailed intelligence packages. Sarah's contacts in Regional Pack Council got evidence through channels that couldn't be intercepted. Political front engaged while military preparations continued. One evening as sunset painted the mountains, Jack stood with Kane and Rowan on the lodge's porch watching their territory one last time before war arrived. Tomorrow scouts reported Marcus's advance elements would reach the border. Proud to call you Brother Jack. Rowan's words carried weight. Proud to stand with you in what's coming. Kane's hand settled on Jack's shoulder. Whatever happens, you earned your place here. Earned your name on that memorial wall beside ours if it comes to that. But I don't think it will. I think Marcus Thornfield is about to learn the hardest lesson of his life. Jack thought about his father, about honor in the long game. Thought about the 45 names on the memorial wall, but he also thought about what they were defending. Not just territory. The idea that honor mattered, that justice was worth fighting for. Marcus thought he destroyed me. Jack spoke quietly. Thought he took everything. He was wrong. He just freed me to find where I belonged. Tomorrow we show him what that mistake cost. The night passed with terrible slowness. Fighters checked equipment. Medical stations confirmed readiness. Communications tested. Everything possible had been done. Now came the hard part, waiting. Dawn broke clear and cold. Jack stood at the command post watching the eastern approaches. 3,000 fighters against 300. Odds that would have been suicide without the political warfare running parallel. Even with it, this was going to be close. The radio crackled. Enemy forces moving, multiple columns, heavy weapons. Estimated strength 400 in first wave with reserves following. Marcus was leading personally. Jack raised the radio voice, calm despite adrenaline. All units stand by. Hold fire until my command. Remember your training. Trust your brothers and make them pay for every inch. The rumble of engines grew louder. War was coming to Silver Peak, and Jack Sterling was ready. The first wave hit at dawn, 400 fighters charging through mountain passes, with the confidence of overwhelming force. Jack watched through binoculars, noting the lack of tactical sophistication. Marcus had brought mercenaries who fought for money, not conviction. Let them come into the kill zone. Jack's voice carried across the command post. Wait for my signal. The attackers advanced across open ground. Jack had deliberately left undefended terrain that funneled them into overlapping fields of fire. When they reached the markers Stone had positioned, Jack gave the order. Fire. The result was devastating. Pre-sighted machine gun positions opened simultaneously, creating interlocking fields that left no cover. Rifle fire from elevated positions picked off anyone who tried to maneuver. Mortars dropped rounds with precision from pre-registered ranges. The first wave broke within minutes, survivors retreating in disorder. Marcus's voice crackled over captured radio frequencies. Rage evident, all units advance. Overwhelming assault. They can't hold. The second wave committed everything, 3,000 fighters pushing forward with reckless aggression. They hit the same kill zones harder, accepting casualties that should have made them reconsider. Jack watched as bodies piled up as the mathematics of attrition worked exactly as calculated. But mathematics cut both ways. Silver Peak fighters were taking casualties too. The defensive positions began showing strain under sustained assault. Ammunition depleted faster than planned. The careful plan confronted the chaos of actual combat. Fall back to secondary positions. Jack's order initiated the planned withdrawal. This is what we trained for: controlled retreat, make them pay for every yard. The withdrawal worked because they'd rehearsed it dozens of times, but it still felt like losing ground carried the psychological weight of retreat. Kane appeared at the command post, blood on his vest from carrying wounded. We can't sustain this defensively. Even with our advantages, they'll eventually break through. Jack had reached the same conclusion. Marcus was willing to accept any casualty count, and 3,000 attackers could afford losses that would cripple 300 defenders. We need to decapitate the leadership. Jack pointed to the map where intelligence placed Marcus's command post 2 miles behind the assault lines. Take out Marcus and the council. Alphas, their forces will collapse. Mercenaries don't fight without paychecks. Rowan studied the map. Suicide mission. Getting through their lines to reach the command post means crossing 2 miles of enemy-controlled terrain. Maybe. Jack was already running infiltration scenarios. But if we don't try, we're just delaying the inevitable. This defensive battle ends with us overrun. How many do you need? Kane's expression shifted to grim acceptance. 10 fighters. Jack had already identified the men: Stone and 9 others, all veterans with combat experience. We move now while they're focused on the main assault. I'll go with you. Kane reached for his vest. No. Jack's response was immediate. You're needed here to command the defense. Same to Rowan. If this mission fails, Silver Peak needs you both. This is my fight anyway. Marcus came here for me. I'm going to finish it. The brothers shared a glance, decades of partnership, allowing complex discussion in seconds. Finally, Kane nodded. Then come back alive. That's an order. Jack assembled his team in 10 minutes. Stone 8 fighters and Sarah, because intelligence officers sometimes made the best operators. They moved out through a concealed exit into the forest flanking the assault corridor. The infiltration took 2 hours of careful movement through terrain that should have been impossible to traverse undetected. But Jack had learned from Taliban fighters who moved through valleys patrolled by American forces with sophisticated surveillance. The principles were universal: use terrain that looked impassable, move during chaos, trust patience over speed. They encountered enemy patrols twice. Both times, Stone's people eliminated guards with knives and suppressors, quiet violence that left bodies hidden and no alert raised. Marcus's command post was in a clearing 2 miles behind the lines, a collection of vehicles and portable structures protected by 50 guards. Too many to fight through directly, but protection focused outward. Nobody expected attack from behind enemy positions. Jack positioned his team on high ground, studying patterns through binoculars. Guard rotations, communications discipline. Inside the largest structure, he could see figures moving, council alphas coordinating the assault. Explosives breached the perimeter. Jack outlined the plan in whispers. Stone, take 4 fighters enveloped from the right. I'll lead through center breach. We have maybe 5 minutes before their QRF responds. Get to the command structure. Eliminate the council leadership. Get out. What about prisoners? Stone asked with professional detachment. No prisoners this time. Jack's voice was cold. They came here to massacre everyone in Silver Peak. We're ending that threat permanently. The assault began with shaped charges detonating on the perimeter. Jack led his element through the breech rifle, up-firing with controlled precision. His people moved in practiced coordination, covering angles, advancing through chaos like surgical instruments. Resistance was fierce but disorganized. Guards weren't prepared for enemy forces inside their perimeter. Jack's element cut through them with brutal efficiency, reaching the command structure within 3 minutes. The fight was brief and savage. Guards fell to coordinated fire. Sarah took down communications. Somewhere in the chaos, Stone's element was doing the same from the opposite side. Command structure next. Jack advanced on the main building, Stone's element converging from the opposite side. Inside, 5 Council Alphas scrambled for weapons, realization dawning that their fortress was breached. Marcus Thornfield was among them, face shifting from arrogance to shock to naked fear. He raised his hands in surrender. "Wait, Jack. Wait, this was all a mistake. We can negotiate." Jack's rifle remained shouldered, targeting Marcus' center mass. Every instinct screamed to shoot to end the man who'd destroyed his life. But he remembered Stone's words from months ago, "Executing prisoners makes us no different from the enemy." "On your knees." Jack's voice was cold steel. "All of you, hands behind your heads." The Council Alphas complied except Marcus, who remained standing. "Please, Jack, I'll give you anything. Money, territory, power. Just let me live." "You don't understand." Jack's rifle didn't waver. "This isn't about revenge. This is about justice. You're going to face trial for conspiracy, murder, treason. You're going to answer for every crime. And then you're going to spend whatever life remains regretting that you betrayed a good man." Marcus's hand moved toward hidden weapon. Stone's rifle barked once Marcus's shoulder exploded in red mist. The former Alpha collapsed, screaming. Should have stayed down. Stone's observation carried no emotion. The extraction was textbook. Jack's team secured the Council Alpha's administered field dressing to Marcus's wound to keep him alive for trial, called for pickup from Silver Peak forces who'd begun advancing once enemy leadership disappeared and mercenaries started fleeing. The ride back showed the aftermath. Bodies littered the assault routes. Wounded from both sides received treatment from medics who'd stopped distinguishing between friend and enemy once shooting stopped. Silver Peak fighters moved with exhausted efficiency. Final casualty counts came in over following hours. Silver Peak forces 45 killed, 83 wounded. Allied packs 38 killed, 67 wounded. Painful losses that would echo for years. But Council forces had lost over 800 dead, 1,200 wounded or captured, with the remainder scattered and no longer constituting organized threat. The Regional Pack Council convened within a week, presented with overwhelming evidence. Jack testified alongside Sarah, laying out financial records, communications intercepts, captured Alphas' desperate attempts to bargain. The evidence was undeniable. Trials followed with swift justice. The Council Alphas received death sentences or permanent exile. Marcus Thornfield was executed by firing squad. Jack watched without satisfaction or regret, just acknowledgement that justice had finally caught up to a man who'd thought himself above consequences. The weeks after were dedicated to rebuilding. Wounded received treatment. Families mourned their dead at ceremonies that honored sacrifice. The compound slowly returned to normal operations. Jack visited the memorial wall daily, reading names of those who'd fallen. 45 names from previous conflicts, now joined by 48 new ones, including Stone's. The sergeant had taken a burst of automatic fire in the command post assault, died covering Jack's advance. Jack stood before that wall most evenings, carrying the weight of command that never got lighter. Kane found him there one evening as sunset painted the mountains. They fought for something that mattered. Kane's words were quiet but firm. Died defending their homes, their families, their pack. That's the best any warrior can hope for. The Regional Pack Council sent formal acknowledgement of Jack's role in exposing and defeating the conspiracy. They offered reinstatement to Redwood Pack, now under new leadership. The new Alpha extended personal invitation for Jack to return home, all charges dismissed, all honors restored. Jack considered the offer for exactly as long as courtesy demanded before declining. Silver Peak was home now. The brotherhood he'd found here couldn't be replaced by returning to a place that had betrayed him. Rowan and Kane called Jack to private meeting 1 month after the battle. "We're getting old, Jack." Rowan opened with characteristic directness. 68 years old, 40 years leading this pack. We've earned retirement. We want you to take over as Alpha of Silver Peak." Kane continued. Jack stared, mind racing. "I've been here 6 months. I don't have the bloodline. Leadership isn't about bloodline," Kane interrupted firmly. "It's about character, competence, courage. Marcus Thornfield had perfect bloodline. Look where that got Redwood Pack." Rowan leaned forward. "You've proven yourself more in 6 months than most do in lifetimes. Led our defense, saved our territory, brought justice to the region. The fighters respect you. The people trust you. You've earned this through action, not inheritance. What if I let you down? Then we'll fail together." Kane's expression softened slightly. "But I don't think failure is in your future. I think you're going to lead this pack with the same honor and tactical brilliance you've shown, and we'll be here as advisors, helping when needed." Jack looked at these men who'd saved him, believed in him. Thought about his father, about honor and duty. Thought about Stone and the others who died defending his territory. On one condition, Jack met their eyes. "We do this together. You two as elders providing wisdom. Me as Alpha handling operations. Three-way leadership." Rowan smiled. "We can work with that." The installation ceremony happened 6 weeks after the battle. 1,000 wolves gathered Silver Peak Pack allied packs, representatives from Regional Pack Council. Elder Iris officiated with the gravitas, speaking ancient words about leadership, responsibility, sacrifice. Jack knelt before Rowan and Kane as they placed the ceremonial Alpha's knife in his hands. "Lead with wisdom," Kane's voice carried across the crowd. "Fight with honor. Protect with your life. I swear it." Jack's response was absolute commitment. The pack's response was thunderous howls of approval echoing across the valley. Jack stood with the knife, feeling the weight of leadership settle onto shoulders that had carried lighter burdens in Afghanistan, but never more important ones. He addressed the assembly. 5 months ago, I came to this territory broken, expelled, dishonored. Came here to die. Instead, I found brothers who saw worth when I saw none, who offered purpose when I'd lost everything, who stood with me against forces that should have crushed us. Marcus Thornfield thought destroying me would eliminate the threat. He was wrong. He just freed me to find where I truly belong. This territory, these people, you're my pack now, my family, my responsibility. And I will defend you with my last breath, lead you with honor, serve you with everything I am. The response was overwhelming cheers, howls, acknowledgement that Jack Sterling had earned his place through action rather than inheritance. The celebration lasted into the night. Jack moved through the crowd accepting congratulations, but his mind was already on the work ahead, rebuilding what war had damaged, strengthening alliances, ensuring the sacrifice hadn't been in vain. 6 months after his installation as Alpha, Jack stood on his cabin's porch watching dawn break over Silver Peak territory. The compound had recovered remarkably well. Life had returned to something approaching normal. Sarah Mitchell found him there with morning coffee and intelligence reports. "You need to see this." She handed Jack a classified document. "There's another council, bigger than the one we took down, operating in Eastern Territories, Ohio, Pennsylvania, New York. They've been watching what happened here. And they're not happy." Jack read with analytical focus. The Eastern Council was larger, more established, more sophisticated. 10 Alpha leaders, 5,000 fighters, operations spanning major metropolitan areas. And they'd just learned that a former Marine captain had exposed and destroyed their Western expansion. "They're coming." Jack looked up. Eventually, Sarah's assessment was clinical. Not immediately, they're too smart for hasty decisions. But they see Silver Peak as threat. You've become a symbol, and symbols need to be eliminated. Jack studied the intelligence mind, already running threat assessments. Another war was coming. Maybe not this year, maybe not next, but coming inevitably, because he'd proven that honor could defeat corruption. "Then we'll be ready." He handed the report back. "This territory wasn't built by running from fights. We stand, we defend, we protect what's ours. And if the Eastern Council wants to test us, they'll learn the same lesson Marcus Thornfield learned." Sarah smiled slightly. "Kane said you'd respond that way. He's already started preliminary planning." "Of course he has." Jack allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The Silvercrest brothers hadn't survived 40 years by waiting for threats. They'd survived by preparing years in advance. But before returning to the command post, Jack made one more stop. In his cabin on the desk beside the lieutenant's insignia he'd first received sat a framed photograph. The image showed a young man in marine dress uniform, standing proud, eyes full of conviction. His father taken 3 days before the pack war that killed him. The photograph had arrived last month, sent by the new Redwood leadership with a formal apology and restoration of all Jack's military honors within pack records. Jack had accepted the apology but declined the ceremony. What mattered was that his father's memory was honored, that the sterling name was cleared. Jack touched the frame gently. "I hope I'm making you proud, old man. I found my place, found my purpose, found brothers worth fighting beside. This is what you taught me honor looked like." He thought about the journey from that riverbank in Northern California where he'd scrubbed his skin raw, trying to wash away shame, to this moment. Alpha of Silver Peak, leader of warriors who'd proven themselves in combat, guardian of a territory that represented something worth dying for. That evening, Jack returned to the memorial wall where 53 names recorded Silver Peak's honored dead. He stood before it with the weight of Alpha responsibility, knowing more names would likely be added before his leadership ended. War was coming again. Different enemy, same stakes. But Jack Sterling wasn't the broken man who'd stumbled into his territory 7 months ago. He was Alpha of Silver Peak, now leader of 300 warriors who'd proven themselves commander of alliances, forged through shared sacrifice. He'd walked through betrayal and emerged stronger. He'd faced overwhelming odds and survived. He'd learned that honor and violence weren't opposites, but complementary forces when wielded by men who understood the difference between murder and justice. The sun disappeared behind the mountains, darkness claiming the valley stars emerging overhead. Jack Sterling, Alpha of Silver Peak, former Marine captain betrayed and resurrected, stood watch over his territory and prepared for whatever came next. Because that's what leaders did. They stood watch while others slept, carried burdens others couldn't bear, made hard calls others couldn't make. This was his purpose. This was his redemption. This was his forever. Marcus Thornfield had thought betrayal would destroy him. Instead, it had forged him into exactly what this territory needed. A leader who understood that honor was worth any sacrifice, that brotherhood transcended blood, that the only way to protect what you loved was to be more dangerous than those trying to destroy it. The Eastern Council was coming, and when they arrived, they'd face Alpha Jack Sterling and 300 warriors who'd already proven that they were willing to die for. The legend of Silver Peak was just beginning, and Jack would spend the rest of his life ensuring that legend endured. He smiled into the darkness, feeling the certainty that came from finding his place in the world. From broken outcast to legendary Alpha, from rejected to respected, from alone to surrounded by brothers. The journey had cost him everything and given him more than he'd ever dreamed possible. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The Eastern Council would eventually make their move. Other threats would emerge from the shadows. But tonight, Silver Peak was safe. His people were protected. Justice had been served. And Jack Sterling stood watch as he would every night for the rest of his life, guardian of a territory built on honor, sustained by brotherhood, and defended by warriors who understood that some things were worth any price. This was his legacy. This was his oath. This was his blood promise to every name carved in that memorial wall, to every person who depended on his leadership, to the brothers who'd given him a second chance when the world had written him off. Silver Peak would stand, and so would he.